Yeah. Hogs Twins here. Check out our friend Matthew Spirit at his podcast at The Dumb Show and his website. Yeah. Don'tUnfriendMe.com. Yeah.
On the Spreely.tv network and all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.
What's going on, Don't Unfriend Me Nation? Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me show. Looks like we've got everything 5x5. Sorry, I had to get a haircut. Just a little trim. It's still longer than hell. And what else do we have to do? Had to go to breakfast with Mike, and then other Mike, not Mike, the older Mike who won't come on the show, who I've been trying to get on for forever. And then physical. Let's get physical. Thank God they didn't do the thing. I don't want to get graphic. But we had to do the poop in the box type thing. So that they sent me a box. And I guess this is the way they do it for prostate cancer now, is instead of making you bend over and sing low, they give you a box. And I guess it's the latest, greatest thing. Whatever. The glory of being 50. I didn't want to do this type of stuff. Thanks, everyone, for liking the stream. We're going to watch a little bit of the Hur. I'm with Hur, the H-U-R, not H-E-R. No, it's not a gender. This is the lead prosecutor in the document scandal of Joseph R. Biden. And I went to the beginning. It's been about 50. Sorry, I haven't been on, still at the hospital. Melania, I hope your mother recovers. Thank God that you're with her. Keep us informed, and our thoughts and prayers with you. Obviously, that's huge. Got to take care of mom. So you take care of you. We'll be here when you get back. Colon cancer is that what did I say? Colon cancer? Did I say colon cancer? I don't think I said colon cancer. Did I? What are you talking about, Kristen? Colon. I didn't say colon. Did I say colon cancer? I mean, Colin Kaepernick was a cancer, but I don't think I said. Anyway, let's watch this. We're going to be on for a better part of this. I always try to save 45 minutes or so. And I knew this was coming on, so I made sure I recorded it. And we're going to watch it from the beginning. Some of you have already been watching it. And if, you don't want to watch it again, that's fine. But I want to hear the opening statement. I'll probably fast forward a little bit. This is important enough to watch. So let's go ahead and dive into this, and we'll commentate throughout the entirety of it. I said prostate. Did I say prostate cancer? Isn't that what they check? It's colon cancer they check for, or prostate cancer? Doesn't it do both? Listen, I don't need this, Kristen. I don't. Listen, doctor says poop in a box, I poop in a box, okay? Whether that's colon or prostate. Did I say colon? Colon. It's colon. Wait, what did I say wrong? I said prostate. Whatever, colon, prostate, whatever. It's in that general area, and if a doc says poop in a box, I'm going to poop in a box, okay? So there it is. We're not here to talk about my my colonoscopy check thing. Both are checked. See, thank you, Kristen. So funny, Kristen. Colin. Kristen's awesome, by the way. She's like my seventh wife. It's crazy.
And drop all the classified information counts.
Let's get to this.
Wow. Okay. We'll see in the end if that's the verdict. Let's drop on in now for Robert Hur's testimony.
Uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency
Right at you,
when he was a
Kristen.
private citizen. He further writes, Mr. Biden willfully retained marked classified documents about Afghanistan and handwritten notes in his notebooks, which he stored in unsecure places in his home.
What, like a
Joe Biden
Volkswagen?
kept classified information, and Joe Biden failed to store classified information properly. Mr. Hur made these determinations after interviewing 140.
Yes, Kevin, that is exactly like Dick in the Box. Dick in the Box, baby. 1, you cut a hole in the box. 2, you stick your dick in the box. 3. Okay, sorry.
Examined 7 million documents, including emails, text messages, photographs, videos, toll records, and other materials from both classified and unclassified sources. But there's more. Joe Biden not only kept information he wasn't allowed to keep, and he not only failed to secure that information properly, he also shared it with people who weren't allowed to see it. Shared that information with his ghostwriter. And remember, this is information that only individuals with a security clearance are supposed to see. Mr. Hur told us on page 200 of his report that it's the kind of information that, quote, risk serious damage to America's national security. And what did Joe Biden have to say about all this? What was his explanation? On page 94 of Mr. Hur's report, Joe Biden said he took his notebooks with him after his vice presidency because, quote, they're mine. And every president before me has done the same exact thing. Never mind the fact that he had never been president when he took this information. But what comes through is Joe Biden felt he was entitled. You can almost hear it. You can feel the arrogance in this statement. They're mine. But even with all that, Mr. Hur chose not to bring charges because, quote, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury as he did in our interview of him as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. A forgetful old man who Mr. Hur said did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview.
Mr. Hur has like those Big Trouble in Little China eyes, you know? The green-eyed Asian. Oh, 1,000 years of life and destiny. We have to go ahead and take her essence to survive through the next dynasty. Anybody see that movie? Big Trouble in Little China, Kurt Russell. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I'm pretty much wearing his hat. I don't have the mullet, but this is damn close. I mean, he didn't have a beard either. He had the boyish good looks. Well, I've got that, but you haven't seen the movie? You must go to get to China. Take the green-eyed girl. No? Dude, that impersonation's spot freaking on. You're going to watch a movie and be like, holy shit, did Matt do the voiceover for that guy? I didn't.
And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term as vice president began. Mr. Hur produced a 345-page report, but in the end, it boils down to a few key facts. Joe Biden kept classified information. Joe Biden failed to properly secure classified information. And Joe Biden shared classified information with people he wasn't supposed to.
Keith, don't share your number on an open forum, by the way. There's some weird people out there who want to do me harm, and I don't want them to do that to you. So appreciate you listening. Anytime, dude, you want to come on the show, we can chat it up. But appreciate the kind words, man. That means a lot. Thank you. Now, I understand Hur's Korean. That doesn't matter. That didn't sit well with my joke, right? If he's Korean, what am I going to say? Yeah, he eats dog. No, that didn't tie in with my joke for Big Trouble in Little China because of his eyes. I know he's not Chinese. And half the people in that movie weren't Chinese or Korean or Japanese. There were Mongolians were in there, Japanese, Koreans. Americans can't tell the difference. Half the people in Chinese, Japanese, Korean movies are one nationality or other because people are too ignorant out here to understand the difference. You don't think I understand the difference between Koreans and Japanese and Chinese people? It's really simple. The emphatic folds tell you all about it. Koreas are pointed a little bit down. Chinese are straight across. Japanese have a slight upward tint. I know these things, but it didn't match my joke that his eyes are dead and he looks like the green-eyed woman from Big Trouble in Little China, that rare Asian with green eyes. You have to find the Asian with green eyes. Listen, I can't keep doing this for you people. This is just like Pulitzer type stuff. And you're sitting here and just, you're breaking me down, people. You're breaking me down. I don't understand.
Joe Biden broke the law. But because he's a forgetful old man who would appear sympathetic to a jury, Mr. Hur chose not to bring charges. Mr. Hur, we think it's important that you be able to respond to President Biden's response to your report. So we're going to play a short video.
But Keith, we appreciate what you said. I'm just trying to protect you, man. I don't want people, personal information. But dude, much love, man. Appreciate you. At least you appreciate my Big Trouble in Little China impersonations. I'm so disappointed. Competition.
President Biden's press conference after your report was released, because there's things in this press conference that the President of the United States says that are directly contradicted by what you found in your report. So if we could play that video.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. Let me say a few things before I take your questions. As you know, the special counsel released his findings today about their look into my handling of classified documents.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's
How
totally
bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak. That's my
Your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not gotten. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I've become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
Voters have concerns about your age. How are you going to assuage them? And do you fear that this report is only going to fuel further concerns about your age?
Only by some of you.
Mr. President, criminal liability today. Do you take responsibility for at least being careless with classified material?
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. It goes in and points out. Things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me, but my staff.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me."
Dude, why do they put this crap around you after you what happened to a Band-Aid? Just a little tiny Band-Aid. This gets all in my hair and it rips it. That's just horrible. I hate doctors. Can't stand them. Yeah. Steal your blood. They wear shiny little things. They wear long coats. Sounds like a vampire frickin' haven.
Your age, you would respond with the words, watch me. Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They express concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Arrogance.
Why are you excusing?
Even more qualified than Kamala Harris?
Yeah. Share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the
no,
report
he
that
did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President,
let me answer your question. The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him, was I had written a long memorandum to President Obama why we should not be in Afghanistan. And I was of multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said should be private because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what it is referring to. It was not classified information in that document.
Dude, I am so excited that Hur is going to be able to clear all this up because I think Grandpa Fudpucker is in for a world of hurt.
In that document. That was not classified.
He called on me. When you look back at this incident, is there anything you would do differently now? And do you think that a special prosecutor should have been appointed in the first place in both of these cases?
First of all, what I would have done is oversee the transfer of the material that was in my office, in my offices. I should have done that. If I go back, I didn't have the responsibility to that. That was my staff was supposed to do that, and they referenced that in the report. And my staff did not.
So let me make sure I get this right. When you break the law, as long as your staff is involved or you didn't have intent to do anything nefarious like Hillary Clinton, you're scot-free. Well, then Donald Trump is set because his staff did those boxes and he didn't have any intent to steal those documents. In fact, he didn't steal those documents. So Donald Trump is off scot-free. You heard it here first. I expect clemency or a pardon to come down by Joe Biden anytime. Because what is good for the goose should be good for the gandering turkey.
Example, I didn't know how half the boxes got in my garage until I found out staff gathered them up, put them together, and took them to the garage in my home. And all the stuff that was in my home was in filing cabinets that were either locked or able to be locked.
Do I want to go to YouTube and moderate? What? Who are we talking to? What's going on with YouTube? Help me understand.
Filing cabinets that were either locked or able to be locked. It was in my house. It wasn't out in Mar-a-Lago in a public place and none of it was high classified. Didn't have any of that red stuff on it. You know what I mean? Around the corners?
Yeah, the red
none
stuff.
Of that. And so I wish I had.
Because high classified is a terminology in the intelligence community. There's low classified, there's medium classified, there's just right classified, and then high classified. And you have to sample all of it to try to find the right one. And usually it's the middle ground one. And then Goldilocks comes out and says, give me a break.
Being moved and where? I thought they were being moved to the archives. I thought all of it was being moved. That's what I thought. Now, what was
Karen, don't spoil the show. Please don't. I just told you this thing. I wanted to watch this. Why are you ruining it? Karen, I just told you I got back from the doctor. I haven't had a chance to watch this, right? And now you're spoiling, folks. Good night. That's it. We enjoy your show. Welcome. Bye.
Adjusting transmitter output.
Really? I mean, why? Why would you do that? Are you the type of person in the middle of a movie theater just stands up and goes, "Hey guys, guess what? Here's the ending. Hey, have you guys read that book? Oh, let me tell you what happens in the last page. By the way, have you read the Bible? Yeah, Jesus dies in the end." It's great. Thanks so much, Karen. Maybe my bad. I'll shut up. Well, there you go, Karen. I wasn't going to say it. You're loved. You're loved. Not liked, loved. Can't believe you spoiled that. I wanted to be surprised. Damn it. Whatever. You can't get anything nice in this world. The Avengers Endgame was ruined for me too. And I'm like, why does everyone keep doing this to me? What does this mean? Whatever.
That's what I thought. Now, what was the last part of your question?
Whether a special counsel should have been appointed in this case and in the case of your rival president, former president.
I think a special counsel should have been appointed. And the reason I think a special counsel should have been appointed is because I did not want to be in a position that they looked at Trump and weren't going to look at me, just like they looked at the vice president. And the fact is they made a firm conclusion. I did not break the law, period. Thank you all very, very much. The hostage negotiation, look. I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response.
I can't watch this again. I've already seen this. My Lord.
Talk to him. Proposed to coincidentally.
How do you know he's lying? His mouth is open.
Such information.
Yes.
Such admiration.
Let's get to it.
Chair now recognizes the ranking member, Mr. Nadler, for an opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Tim, it's
glad you have
okay.
such
You guys, I'm just teasing. I really don't care. I'm going to find out either way, and I'm just doing this for dramatic effect. By the way, folks, since the whole thing's been ruined for me today, I'm in an extremely depressed mood. I'd really appreciate if you would donate to the Don't Unfriend Me show. You can go to Link Tap Go and donate. And, lift my spirits up now that this whole thing's been ruined for me. Folks, it doesn't matter what's said. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing ever happens. None of these people will hold each other accountable because it's the inmates and you're asking the inmates to run the jailhouse. It's not, nobody's going to hand out longer sentences to the inmates because they're the judge, jury, and trial. It's crooked. It's never going to go anywhere. This is all just entertainment. I'm watching it because I'm interested to see what Hur has to say. But can we just be transparent? Nothing's going to happen. Yeah.
10 minutes of this hearing. Mr. Chairman, House Republicans may be desperate to convince America that white conservative men are on the losing end of a two-tiered justice system.
Oh, come on, dude.
A theory that appeals to the MAGA crowd but has no basis in reality. But your comments today make me wonder if you have read the special counsel's report at all. The Hur report does help us draw a distinction between President Biden and Donald Trump, just not the one you want. Two distinctions, actually. First,
dude, I despise this little penguin. I mean, seriously, this guy. How can you always be wrong? I mean, their broken clocks are at least twice a day. How in the hell can Nadler always be wrong? And I'm sorry to say, at least once in your life, you look at yourself and go, you know what? I look like a mixture between Dom DeLuise and the Penguin from Batman. And I am going to do something about my physique because I can't stand the way I feel and look. And they go through a transformation and they work on it and they try to better themselves. Nadler has never had the presence of mind. He has the same exact hair for the last 40 years. In fact, I don't think it's ever moved. The same haircut, the same tie, the same suit, everything. And I can't respect a person who has their belt buckle aligned with their nipples. I can't. And this person has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. First of all, he's dumb as dog shit. He constantly just espouses BS and lies. He's just as bad as any of the far left extremists because this guy apologizes for him. At least you know what you're going to get with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Kung Pao Chicken and Island Omar and Tashid Rahib Lalib Shibagububu, whatever. You know you're going to get progressive extremists who support the PLO, who support Hezbollah, who support Hamas and JIP and everybody else. and they absolutely despise the culture here in the United States and the freedoms we possess. They hate white men. They despise our military and police. At least they're honest. Nadler apologizes and covers for those people, and he comes up here as a white guy, and he can talk to other white guys and pretend that somehow he is righteous because he doesn't wear a hijab that the PLO wear on the floor, or he doesn't go ahead and throw stew meat in protest because of cows being slaughtered in the Rust Belt of America. Or he doesn't glue his hand to the frickin' sidewalk, that you would assume that he is not as much of an extremist as those people that I mentioned, and he is. This man hates his own skin. He hates his own disposition. He hates everything about himself, and he goes out there and he completely emasculates himself for the leftist portions of his party. At least Republicans do it for money. At least Republicans do it for guns. At least they do it for oil. And we understand that they sell their policy based upon big corporations, and they believe in tax breaks solve everything, like Windex supposedly solves everything, including cancer. At least we know the Republicans are motivated by greed. The liberals are motivated by something completely different. They want to destroy the fabric of this country and what we are. They despise America. They despise everything we stand for. They hate the flag. They want history rewritten. They want everyone else to shut up and just do what they say. And if they don't, they'll destroy you. There is a very big difference between Republicans and Democrats. And one of them thinks that they have the moral high ground, and the other one espouses that they have the moral high ground, but it is for sale to the highest bidder. There is a very big difference between us and Democrats. We use the Bible and we use our core values, the Constitution, to establish who we are as a people, and we believe that those values are important. Democrats will just sell it to whoever has the brightest idea. And they've been doing that since Vietnam. And most of their protests and most of their outrage and most of the fear that they sell is simply greed coming from a different side of the aisle. And they are completely shills for whatever will make them more money and expand their power. It's always money, power, and votes with liberals. It always is. It'll never change. It's ridiculous.
Distinctions, actually. First, the report is clear that, quote, at no point did the special counsel find evidence that Mr. Biden intended or had reason to believe the information would be used to injure the United States or to benefit a foreign nation, close quote. With respect to the classified documents found in President Biden's...
Sorry, we got a question. This is the way it always happens. This is why we put it on live. Melissa Satz, holy moly. Matt, I have been watching your show for a while. You talk straight, and that is truly appreciated. Needed. Thank you. My question is, Biden took classified documents as a senator and a VP, which to my understanding is unlawful. How is that not worse than what President at the time Trump did when he was sitting president, who again, to my understanding, was allowed to have classified documents? What am I missing about the legality? Why is Trump prosecutable and the other not? Okay, that is a really good question. So let me go ahead and answer it. That's what this hearing is for. So the whole reason why they said they did not prosecute Biden, first, it was that he did nothing wrong. First, he voluntarily gave up all those documents. Well, the problem with that is that he didn't. They found another 5 sets of documents spread over 3 different states, 5 different locations, and whoops, we found more. 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 Well, that's obstruction of justice. If you are ordered to surrender all documents and you voluntarily give away the first set, and let's face it, the only reason why he gave away the first set of documents and was honest about it is because Donald Trump was being held accountable for the same thing, and he knew that there was going to be a raid on Mar-a-Lago. Even though he says he didn't know, we know this is political positioning. So he comes out looking like getting ahead of the story, and they can't go ahead and say, well, Donald Trump did it, so you get to be held accountable too. He gets to hide behind the whole, oh, well, I volunteered this information, so therefore I'm not culpable. Well, that didn't work out. So then what does he do? He comes back and says, well, my stuff wasn't classified like Donald Trump had thousands upon thousands of top secret documents. Well, Leroy and I did the audit of what the FBI confiscated, and there were only 17 documents that fell within the SCI top secret qualifications. And that is a very very different story than what they said. So then Biden said, well, I didn't have any of those red labeled documents. Well, that's not true. We found out that was a lie. So then what happens is they go ahead and we saw what happened. They stormed Donald Trump. They were there in January, February. They did a preliminary check. They told them to lock the doors to secure the documents, did not confiscate, took an entire itinerary and inventory of what was there. Then when they raided it, they did the same itinerary and both of them match. He didn't take any documents out of there. What was there in January, February is what they took in May and June. But everyone's now coming out saying that he took documents to New Jersey and got on a flight the day of the warrant. That's not true. It's complete bullshit. Whatever. People say what they want to say. But the whole thing about this thing is that there are truths, and then there are facts, and then there are lies. And I don't care about the truths. I don't care about the lies. I only care about the facts. And the facts are this. Joe Biden had no right to SCI material out of a SCIF as a senator or as the vice president of the United States. Now, he will receive briefings. And there are times that briefings will come, daily briefings that the president and the president and the vice president get, where there will be SCI, compartmentalized information, top secret information, which is code word classified at times or can only be in a SCIF, which is a secured environment, that will be brought to private residents, brought to Delaware, brought to Air Force One, brought to Camp David, Marine One, over in Japan, whatever. And the reason why is the daily briefing doesn't stop just because the president is out of country. That continues to happen. And whether that's done via teleconference through over an encrypted network, whether that's done in person or an attaché, whatever that be, there are times when compartmentalized information will leave a secure location and go on foot, and that is permitted. Joe Biden had no business not being on the oversight committee, not being on the intelligence community, committee to have any access to that information. What he did was take classified information as a president, vice president, as a senator, and in that point, that right there breaks every single classification of processes that the intel community has. For him to keep them and then saying that they weren't important is a fabrication and a lie. Now, that is a completely different situation than Donald Trump. Donald Trump has every right for the same briefings and the same type, except for this, is that Donald Trump can declassify any documents that are deemed classified, that are deemed secret, that are sensitive. The moment that he bridges into top secret or SCI, compartmentalized information, Donald Trump cannot declassify that information. Listen to me as a former intelligence officer. Leroy, who is a current intelligence officer, and Mike, who was a former intelligence officer, then a retired intelligence officer, and now again a current intelligence officer. We will all sit up here and tell you, people who have handled SCI material, who've handled higher quality material than most admirals or generals in the military have handled, will tell you that if at any time we were to take top secret or SCI material out of a location, we would be in Leavenworth for the rest of our lives. Period. Full stop. The president, that doesn't change. The president has right to have access. The president can brief and read people into everything up to secret. The moment he goes into top secret or SCI, there is a process to declassify that information. It has to go through redaction. It goes to the Department of Justice. It goes to the Department of Defense and the acquiring agency, Alphabet Agency, who garnered that information. And if it's a multi-unit agency piece of evidence or piece of intelligence, it must be redacted by every one of those agencies to ensure that the source is not culpable or exposed. Period. The president has no authority to declassify SCI or top secret. I will take Kash Patel on any fucking day of the week. You can go ahead and tell Kash Patel, get on my show, I'll eat him for fucking breakfast. Everyone goes, well, Kash Patel says. I don't care what Kash Patel says. I guarantee you I had a higher clearance than Kash Patel. So I will educate him up and down the frickin' road. It's not me saying Trump is guilty. I just want to make sure we understand the classification of what he can and can't do. And he cannot simply say, this stuff's declassified. That's not the way this works. Now that we've established that, let's go ahead and go into the rest of it. 17 pieces of SCI and TS material. Some of that stuff was just folders, were just serialized folders without information in it. People are like, how did the empty folders get there? I've just told you. Briefings happen all the time. Classified documents get moved around in through the intel community and go from one department to another. There's a lot of paper transfer, especially when it comes to briefings. Most of that stuff now is digitally transferred, but there are times when it's not, and it's still a hand-carry piece of intelligence. It could be a memo. It could be something that's fresh out. It could just be something that flashed across message traffic that hasn't necessarily been processed yet. So you print it out on a piece of paper and you go and use it for notes on briefing. You show the president, you show the vice president, a senator, the oversight committee, whoever it is. Let them look at that, and then you dispose of it properly in a burn bag or an on-site burn center, which a lot of these places have, including Joe Biden's personal residence. Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago has a burn center. All that type of stuff when they were president or vice president or any type of position that they're getting briefings will have burn bags and burn centers at that location. That's just the way it is. Donald Trump, the only thing that he needs to be held responsible for. Now, when it comes to reading people in or having a ghost author or having a journalist or some crap like that, you have to understand that that is at discretion of that person at the time based upon what their knowledge of the intelligence security measures are. And if that person breaks those, we've already demonstrated that it has to be purposeful and by intent, because Hillary Clinton broke every single, every type of law and every type of rule in the intelligence community that there was. And because she did not mean to, or it wasn't her intent, she got off scot-free. That was, that set precedent. But Donald Trump, where he is responsible versus Joe Biden, is that he is responsible for breaking a court order and a cease and desist that he was supposed to return those documents that he had taken. And for over a year, the NARA, the National Records Association, blah, 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 who keep all of the records, presidential records, have an absolute right to request that information back because those documents do not belong to Donald Trump. They belong to the people of the United States of America. That is absolutely correct. And by him not returning those documents, him denying that those documents existed or that he had possession of them, or him dragging his heels through his lawyers is essentially obstruction. When you are ordered to do something, you go ahead and comply. He didn't comply. And it doesn't matter what you think that, well, that's not right. He's the president. He can do whatever he wants. Well, that's not true. There are rules, there are regulations, and he most assuredly obstructed that order. Everything else after that, I have no problem with the way things were handled. You have Secret Service at that location. He followed the FBI and what they said to do, which was to lock the location up. The FBI took his passport. They took his personal documents. They went into personal belongings of Melania and through her underwear and garment area. They went ahead and stormed it fully armed. Joe Biden got a 24 to 72 hour notice on all of the properties. 5 times the FBI went back there to get more documents. And every time they notified his lawyers first and allow him to scrub anything that could be considered to be malicious or put him in a limelight that he wouldn't want to be. So what's the difference? The final piece of this thing is that Hur said that he could not be held accountable in a trial because people would be sympathetic because essentially he wasn't culpable of standing trial because of his mental faculties. That is what was said. Now, it's an interesting thing how they're spinning it. You've got a prosecutor who says you're guilty. I've got to hold you accountable. Well, were his mental faculties not where they should have been when he was a vice president, when he was a congressman, when he took these documents? And the answer would be most assuredly he was. This is just the way that the government runs. They never hold each other accountable. They never will hold each other accountable. And this is just the get out of jail free card for Biden. With Trump, it'll come down to that he can sit here and say, hey, I did this because I was president. I didn't know any better. That's all he's got to say. Oh, it wasn't? Oh, well, we thought it was. Because that's all it's taken for Hillary Clinton to get off, for people who've had affairs with mistresses in the check writing scandals, the Iran-Contra, gun running to Mexico, Fast and Furious, giving money to Iran in pallets full of cash, spying on Donald Trump's campaign. We didn't know. Look at this, Brennan and Tapper. Look what happened with Strzok and Page with the FBI. You had the head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, Comey, and the NSA all going after Donald Trump and spying on his campaign and making secret FISA warrants. Nobody's held accountable. This is all bullshit. Nothing's going to come of this. Donald Trump is not going to jail for the document scandal, and neither is Joe Biden. And Hunter Biden's not going to jail either. Nobody is. This is just to bloodlet. This is just to throw some red meat to the lions so the lions can go ahead and kill the Christians and not the Romans themselves when they try to let them out of the cage. This has nothing to do with justice. This is just red meat. This is the ancillary prize that the underrepresented party gets to do. They get to go ahead and sit here and attack and nitpick from the cheap seats and have subpoena powers and hold appropriations back to punish and to overrule pieces of legislation so that president doesn't get to look good. That's all this is. Nothing will come of this. It's just entertaining to watch. So there's the answer to your question, which is a long answer to a pretty short question. Merry Christmas.
Found in President Biden's possession, quote, the decision to decline criminal charges was straightforward, close quote. And with respect to the special counsel's investigation, quote, Mr. Biden.
No, Trump did not tell them to take what they wanted. That's even if it was at that point, Darla, it was long after they had request, and the lawyers kept continuing to stall and not return the documents. Trump is guilty of that. Trump had a legal court order to return those documents. The day that the NARA did that, which they've done with every president, and he defied that, he should be held in contempt. That's just the way it works. But as far as this other stuff about him declassifying and taking stuff home, that shit's going to get washed under the rug. Because if it doesn't, you're going to have to hit the Clintons. With the Clinton library, you're going to have to hit the Reagan library. You're going to have to hit Bush. You're going to have to hit Obama. You're going to have to hit Biden. This is going nowhere. This right here is simply the Republicans trying to bring awareness and bring Joe Biden down even further because they're losing traction because the border, although serious, isn't giving them as much as they wanted. And Joe Biden doing the State of the Union, he's gaining in the polls a little bit because they're seeing him as someone who's competent. Now they're going to go back to the narrative of making him look stupid, and this is what they're doing. This is all political. That's all this is.
Classified documents to the National Archives and the Department of Justice, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his homes, sat for voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation, close quote. President Biden acted responsibly, cooperated completely, and the decision to decline criminal charges was relatively straightforward.
Because, Lee, they don't want a ghostwriter. Sure, go after the ghostwriter. You don't think there's going to be people who are going to be charged with the document scandal with Donald Trump? They already have been. People have already been held accountable for that. They're going to continue to get held accountable for that. But you're not going to charge a reporter who's sitting there having a conversation or a ghostwriter because it's immaterial. Nobody is going to get held accountable for this. And if it is, it's going to be some day players. Let's watch this.
Forward. In short, to borrow a phrase from the last administration, the Hur report represents the complete and total exoneration of President Biden. And how does that record contrast with President Trump, the documents he retained, and the criminal charges pending against him in Florida? We know that Trump deliberately took large amounts of classified information from the White House. He has admitted as much, occasionally pretending that he classified this information without telling anyone on his way out the door.
Declassified dipshit.
We know that he stored that information around Mar-a-Lago in the craziest of places. On the ballroom stage, spilled across the floor of an unlocked closet next to the toilet. We know that he showed classified military plans to an author interviewing him at Bedminster. Quote,
oh, look at those beautifully laid out documents. They didn't do that to Joe Biden, did they? Oh, no? Oh.
Trump says on an audio recording, now I can't, but this is still a secret. Still a secret, close quote. So much for the declassification theory. We know from the indictment that Trump is alleged to have shared these classified documents with many other visitors to Mar-a-Lago. And we know that, despite this outrageous conduct, the Department of Justice gave Trump every opportunity to avoid criminal charges. Again, in the special counsel's words, quote, after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. He not only refused to return the documents for many months, but he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it, close quote. Why did the president charge former President Trump but not President Biden? Not because of some vast conspiracy, not because the so-called deep state was out to get him, but because former President Trump was fundamentally incapable of taking advantage of...
Lee, you guys, I'm not the moral police. Why aren't lies like this punished in some way, fines or fact checked on the phone? Because if you find one of them, you have to find all of them. If you release one lie, you've got to address all the lies. These guys, they're all in on it. They take it to the edge, and it's like a scripted event in WWE. Sometimes Hulk Hogan looks bad. He has to look like a sexist, and then all of a sudden he'll save Jessica, and then he'll hold her, lift up his arm, and she'll kiss him on the bicep, and then everything's good, and he gives her a rose. Other times he yells and screams on her because Mean Gene pisses him off, or Andre the Giant slammed him, and Jessica takes the brunt, and she winds up crying. You can look like the hero and look like a zero, and it's all trading ponies, man. All right, you do this to us, we're going to do this to you, and everyone knows it's not going to. Dude, nothing is going to happen. Nothing will happen. Joe Biden will be impeached. Fine. You know what's going to happen? Nothing. Senate's not going to confirm it. Nothing will be done. Nobody will ever be held accountable in Washington, D.C. unless we have private citizens do oversight. And that's what we need. We need each state to represent private citizens, which are extremely well paid, to go in and audit our representatives. And they need to be assigned by the governor, and checks and balances need to be done at the state to start checking the federal level. That's the only way you're going to fix this. It's the only way. They'll never allow that. We have voted our rights away. We have given them everything that they've wanted, which is complete and utter power to not hold each other accountable. There are no more checks and balances. The Supreme Court isn't even obeyed by the President of the United States anymore. If you got subpoenaed by the House, you showed up. You didn't show up, you paid the consequence. Now, nobody cares. This is all dog and pony show. But that's what we need. We need the states to have independent investigators who are assigned by the state governor to go in and audit the federal government, because the federal government has that against the states. They have the IRS, they have the ATF, they have the Department of Homeland Security, they have the FBI. You have the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. You have FEMA to go. All of these alphabet agencies go in and oversee the states. So it's time now for the states to send independent investigators into the federal government, and to unilaterally all of these states agree to independently overview the inner workings of our federal government. You want to see how quickly shit happens after that? You want to see how quickly the budget gets balanced? Do you want to see how quickly the grab ass and the dollars and the political action committee monies and the dark monies and the special interest groups stop when we have independent investigators go in? But it won't happen. Not until the states take the power back. We created the federal government. The states did. We did. We empowered them to be here. There wasn't supposed to be a federal government. We voted on this to happen, and we created them. And we created them to ensure that all the states got equal representation and our borders were protected on a national scale, knowing that certain states couldn't afford the things that were necessary in order to make this happen. So we created the federal government in order to do this. We created our own demons. We created our own monsters, as men do on most things. And they are out of control. The states and the governors must react. We need more Texas and less California. No, we mean more California too, because California has threatened to secede too. And even though they're on the wrong side of it, at least they're willing to challenge the federal government when necessary. They're just doing for the wrong things, but who cares? At this point, we need more states like California and Texas, even though I don't love California, I don't love their policies, but at least they stand their ground when they disagree with the federal government. That's what we need. We need more states like Oklahoma and Ohio. We need less states like Virginia. We need less states like Arizona that completely surrender their beliefs and vote away their freedoms because they disagree with a couple of conservative politicians who are from their state. We need the states to rise up. And the truth of the matter is that the governors are the constituents of the president. The president, I've said this 100 times, he's not the president of the people. He's the president of the states. There is a very big difference. And people go, well, there's people in states, so therefore he's the president of the people. No, he's not. He's not elected by the people. He's elected by the states. He is the president of the governors. The governor is the president of your state. This is why the power resides with the 10th Amendment. And every single state has the right to invoke the 10th Amendment and use the reserve powers of the states to go ahead and challenge the federal government. We need to stand together. And that's the problem. It's not that hundreds of millions of people need to formulate together. It's that the governors of the states need to formulate together. And they need to propose legislation that is unified. And they need to preside with a 2/3 majority. Then those elected representatives have to do what the states want, because then they can codify these rules. You need to propose amendment 66% or 2/3 majority. In order to remove amendment, you need 75% or 3/4 majority, which requires a convention of states. You're not going to get that, but you can propose new amendments for term limits. You can propose new amendments for oversight from independent bodies in the state to ensure that each candidate, that each representative and legislator is rated based upon their performance of voting with their constituents in their district. And the moment that they stray from that, there is a penalty for that. And if they do it so many times where they're absent for a vote, or they do it so many times that they vote against their district, if they do so many times where they take a certain amount of money outside the normal campaign funding and the campaign awareness and raising of dollars, and they use that money for nefarious purposes, or they go ahead and sleep with their brother in order to become an American citizen, or they go ahead and sell secrets, or they support terrorist regimes inside the Capitol, or whatever it may be, they're rated by those governors and by those independent councils and will be removed from office. And then the next thing you need to do is stop all anniversarying of bodies of Congress and senators. So instead of going every 4 years and every 2 years and having it be half or a quarter or a third of Congress or the Senate, all expiration dates start and stop at the same time. Every single state, all 50 states, you have to vote for 2 senators every single 4 years. And there isn't half of them left over, because then the corruption can never be cut out. It's like you have a malignant cancer and you want to monasticize that cancer, so you take out half of it and leave the rest to grow again. That's all you're doing. So until we actually have an anniversary where the entire sessions of Congress or Senate can be completely removed and absolved from their roles and replaced with all new bodies, you're never going to solve this problem. And then you must form term limits. And the reason why those term limits is that before you run, you have to go ahead and sign a charter for the things that you want to achieve with a deadline and time that you will achieve them. And if you don't get them done, you're removed. This is really simple to fix, but the states have to stop being pussies. The states need to unify. States need to take the lead of larger states and actually line up together, because when you have 1 or 2 states threatening, it's not that big of a deal. But when you have entire quadrants of the country that makes up billions upon billions of dollars in taxable revenue to the United States government, I'm telling you right now that makes a difference, but you have to do it. So how do you solve it? It starts at the state and local government. It starts with your mayor, your governor, your city council, your dog catcher, your county clerk recorder's office. If you fix those people, the top will crumble, because real change doesn't happen at the federal level. It happens at the state level. So if you want to fix your town, you go ahead and address your town. If you want to fix your city, you address your city. You want to fix your state, you address the state. And if you want to fix the federal government, all 50 states need to sing harmoniously the same tune, the same song, and the federal government will buckle. Because there is no federal government without the states. That's why the Founding Fathers were geniuses. That's why they were geniuses. Okay? We good? Good. Glad we had this talk. Let's watch the rest of this.
Incapable of taking advantage of even one of the many, many chances he was given to avoid those charges. Which brings me to the second distinction this report helps us draw between President Biden and Donald Trump.
Ugh.
Simply put, President Biden had the mental acuity to navigate this situation. Donald Trump did not. Much as
that state would never get any federal funding again. Well, great. That's fine. That's fine. But there's only so many times you can do that before the federal government is going to... Let me ask you a question. Do you think if Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado all said no to the federal government, that California would not push the federal government to do whatever those 3 states wanted? Well, they most certainly would, because they would never get any water again. Do you think a lot of the Eastern Seaboard would not listen to more of the belt cities and states when it came to distributing steel, that shipped out agriculture and produce, that sends energy to those larger cities, that they wouldn't listen? Listen, they may have the money, but the reason they have the money is because they're able to do unabashed business because of the commodities that the red states provide. We provide food, water, and energy, and cheap labor. They provide a lot of money and technology. That's the trade-off. So when everyone says, "Oh yeah, red states, they take a lot of funding, they take a lot of money for unemployment," sure they do, because they do the higher risk jobs, and there are less pharmaceutical and high quality hospitals in these small towns because doctors want to make $750,000 a year, and you don't get to make that in a small town. So they've left. So we get made fun of. Well, doctors won't work in your town. Of course not. Not when you're offering a BMW, a 365 yacht and golf club, and paying these guys the base salary of $750,000 annually, and a beautiful home in Beverly Hills. And then once they get all the money for the prescriptions and everything else that they go ahead and pander to people, you're talking these guys are making 10s, 15s, 20 millions of dollars in private practice. Why would they want to work in these small towns? So that's where the federal government should help. The federal government should help by incentivizing doctors to come here, especially people who are 4 years out of college or 2 years out of college, is offer them help with their college assistance to work in small towns like they do with the military. A lot of people, in order to pay off some of their college debt, will work for the government through the military. That's a great incentive. Why didn't you bring that to the small towns? So when people say, well, one state, that's why I said one state can't do it because of the federal funding. But if you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 states joined together in a region, those states can help each other be successful. And the people who don't have textile can lean on this state. And the people who don't have ag can lean on this state. And the people who don't have energy can lean on this state. And they can form a union together, and they won't need the federal government. But that takes cooperation, that takes leadership, and unfortunately, we don't see a lot of that. We see people who are getting the table scraps from Washington, and they're fine with that. And to me, I think that's bullshit.
About the President Biden's age. But let's set the context. After returning every classified document, after opening his home to federal investigators, while simultaneously managing the first hours of the crisis in Israel, President Biden volunteered to sit through a 5-hour interview with the special counsel. I believe, as is his habit, that President Biden probably committed a verbal slip or two during the interview. And I'm not sure any of that matters, because when the interview was over, Mr. Hur completely exonerated President Biden. And then there is Donald Trump.
Oh.
What kind of man bungles not one, but dozens of opportunities to avoid criminal liability? What must that say about his mental state? Here, too, the record speaks for itself.
Wow, Nadler, that was really powerful. It sounds like every single speech you've ever done.
Of all time, James Webb. I don't remember the names. Don't remember the name. Viktor Orban. Did anyone ever hear of him? He's the leader of Turkey. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley is in charge of security. 3 years later, how about that?
Did you actually have a one-on-one with Comey then?
Not much, not even that I remember. I like mosquitoes. We have languages coming into our country. We have nobody that even speaks those languages. They're truly foreign languages. Nobody speaks them. Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat your... Oh. I have a really good memory.
Your next wife was a woman by the name of Marla Maples?
That's right.
Do you recall what years you were married to Ms. Maples?
It's called like...
If anybody wants to stump me, ask me a date. That doesn't have to do with history. And everyone's like, duh, every date's history. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking like U.S. history, world history, major events. I can remember anything. But if you ask me, Olivia and I get in arguments all the time over this. And you guys see it on the show. And she'll correct me on a date. And I'm just like, damn it. Fine. It was Saturday. Excuse me, who cares? It's not important to the story. But I'm the same way. I can't remember that stuff. And we're not saying that people don't slip up. We're not saying that people make mistakes, but you could run the tape on Donald Trump and the verbal miscues that he's made in his entire life, and you could go ahead and not even scratch or be a pimple on the body of Joe Biden. That is a ridiculous notion.
Up here, and it's called memory, and it's called other things.
So you don't remember saying you have one of the best memories?
I don't remember that. And Putin, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word. You've heard that, nuclear. We have to win in November, or we're not going to have Pennsylvania. They'll change the name. And I talked to Putin a lot.
Did you ask him that? I don't remember that. I saw that this morning. I don't remember asking him that question.
I have a good memory and all that stuff, like a great memory. For 20 years, they were fighting ISIS. I defeated ISIS in 4 weeks. And we did with Obama. We won an election that everyone said couldn't be won. I'm not cognitively. And you know what? When I am, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to be the first people. I know my people. You'll say, all right, Trump, you did a good job. Get the hell out of here. That's it.
That is a man who is incapable of avoiding criminal liability, a man who is wholly unfit for office.
What does this have to do with Joe Biden?
And a man who, at the very least, ought to think twice before accusing others of cognitive decline.
If I'm not mistaken, Hur said that he had cognitive decline. Yes, Donald Trump said it. What does this have to do with Joe Biden? This is what we do. The Democrats come out here and go, whataboutism, and they're okay with whataboutism as long as it's about their guy. And Republicans will continue to flail. Instead of stopping the entire proceeding right now, dismissing her and everybody, and having the Republicans have point of contention with Nadler, and having a serious, harsh discussion that these proceedings have nothing to do with Donald Trump, that these aren't in regards to Donald Trump, that if their questions and comments don't have something to do with Joe Biden and the pertinence to this investigation, then they are to sit on their hands. And if they do not, then they will be removed and put into contempt. Why have the gavel? If you're not going to keep order, but this doesn't do any good. This isn't about, we've already had Donald Trump's hearings. We've already had Donald Trump's investigations. We've already had his grand juries. Those things are all in process. And Democrats will have their time to go ahead and grandstand all they want and stick their tongue out and pretend that what they're reading isn't completely scripted by someone other than them because they're too stupid to do it themselves. You'll have that time. This isn't your time. This is to hear about her. And her has no idea about Donald Trump's dealings because that is a completely separate investigation that he had nothing to do with. But once again, here's the dog and pony show. Democrats, instead of addressing the issue, are going to go ahead and turn it into something that it's not. What if we would have done this with January 6th, and then every time they said anything about January 6th, they brought up BLM? Conservatives didn't do that. They went, why? Because we didn't even get any equal representation on there. We had Liz fucking Cheney and Kinzinger, or whatever his face is. You kidding me? Those aren't Republicans. Those aren't people who have any interest in being fair. Those aren't people who have an interest in getting to the truth. They're people who hate Donald Trump and will do anything to go ahead and destroy him. It's ridiculous.
Thank you for being here today, Mr. Hur. Thank you for illuminating a stark choice for this country in the months to come. I look forward to your testimony, and I yield back.
Oh, thank God. You blowhard.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the chairman of the Oversight Committee, Mr. Comer, for an opening statement.
Thank you. In August 2022, President Biden questioned in a 60 Minutes interview how anyone can be that irresponsible when asked about classified documents in the possession of former President Trump. But when President Biden said this, he knew that he had stashed classified materials in several unsecured locations for years, dating back to his time as vice president and even as a U.S. senator. President Biden, the White House, and his personal attorneys have not been honest with the American people about his willful retention of classified material and continue to hide information.
All right,
from
I want to hear what
Congress.
Hur has to say.
President Biden's attorneys claim to have not November for the American people.
Exonerates.
Oh, I want to hear Raskin.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the ranking member of the Oversight Committee, Mr. Raskin.
My God, when did we hear from her?
Jordan, there are just three basic points that all Americans need to understand.
Hey, where's his do-rag? I thought he was going to go ahead and show that he had cancer for like the rest of his term. Oh, I guess he's done now. Oh, congratulations, Raskin. I mean, I'm seriously glad he's got and fought that and won, but I never understood the do-rag. Since when are men afraid to shave their heads? But whatever.
Exonerates President Biden. The very first line of the report says it all.
I don't care about Biden. I don't
and
want to hear this. Just give me
Deputy Attorney
There
General.
we go. This is what I want to hear from.
Let the record reflect that the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Thank you, and you can be seated. Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony. Mr. Hur, you may begin with your opening statement. Make sure you got that mic on, if you could, Mr. Hur. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Geez, I never thought we'd have to tell it. No, I'm not going to say. Nope, not going to do it. I'm on Izzo's show. Sorry, forget it. Scratch that from the record, Your Honor.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Nadler, Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Raskin, members of the committee, good morning. I'm privileged to have served our country for the majority of my career, a decade and a half, most of those years with the Department of Justice. I have served as a line prosecutor, a supervisor, the Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General, a United States Attorney, and a special counsel. I've served in these roles with gratitude as the son of immigrants to this country, the first member of my family to be born here. My parents grew up in Korea and were young children during the Korean War. My father remembers being hungry and grateful for the food that American GIs shared with him and his siblings. My mother fled what is now North Korea in her own mother's arms, heading south to safety. My parents eventually met, married, and came to the U.S., seeking a better life for themselves and for their children. Their lives and mine would have been very different were it not for this country. No matter the role, no matter the administration, I have applied the same standards and the same impartiality. My respect for the Justice Department and my commitment to this country are why I agreed to serve as special counsel when asked by the Attorney General. I resolved to do the work as I did all my work for the department, fairly, thoroughly, and professionally, with close attention to the policies and practices that govern department prosecutors. My team and I conducted a thorough, independent investigation. We identified evidence that the president willfully retained classified materials after the end of his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. This evidence included an audio-recorded conversation during which Mr. Biden told his ghostwriter that he had, quote, just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. When Mr. Biden said this, he was a private citizen speaking to his ghostwriter in his private rental home in Virginia. We also identified other recorded conversations during which Mr. Biden read classified information aloud to his ghostwriter. We did not, however, identify evidence that rose to the level of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Because the evidence fell short of that standard, I declined to recommend criminal charges against Mr. Biden. The department's regulations required me to write a confidential report explaining my decision to the Attorney General. I understood that my explanation about this case had to include rigorous, detailed, and thorough analysis. In other words, I needed to show my work, just as I would expect any prosecutor to show his or her work explaining the decision to prosecute or not. The need to show my work was especially strong here. The Attorney General had appointed me to investigate the actions of the Attorney General's boss, the sitting President of the United States. I knew that for my decision to be credible, I could not simply announce that I recommended no criminal charges and leave it at that. I needed to explain why. My report reflects my best effort to explain why I declined to recommend charging President Biden. I analyzed the evidence as prosecutors routinely do, by assessing its strengths and weaknesses, including by anticipating the ways in which the president's defense lawyers might poke holes in the government's case, if there were a trial, and seek to persuade jurors that the government could not prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. There has been a lot of attention paid to language in the report about the president's memory, so let me say a few words about that. My task was to determine whether the president retained or disclosed national defense information willfully. That means knowingly and with the intent to do something the law forbids. I could not make that determination without assessing the president's state of mind. For that reason, I had to consider the president's memory and overall mental state and how a jury likely would perceive his memory and mental state in a criminal trial. These are the types of issues that prosecutors analyze every day. And because these issues were important to my ultimate decision, I had to include a discussion of them in my report to the Attorney General. The evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue. We interviewed the president and asked him about his recorded statement, quote, "I just found all the classified stuff downstairs," end quote. He told us that he didn't remember saying that to his ghostwriter. He also said he didn't remember finding any classified material in his home after his vice presidency. And he didn't remember anything about how classified documents about Afghanistan made their way into his garage. My assessment in the report about the relevance of the president's memory was necessary and accurate and fair. Most importantly, what I wrote is what I believe the evidence shows and what I expect jurors would perceive and believe. I did not sanitize my explanation, nor did I disparage the president unfairly. I explained to the Attorney General my decision and the reasons for it. That's what I was required to do. I took the same approach when I compared the evidence regarding President Biden to the department's allegations against former President Trump. There, too, I called it like I saw it. As a prosecutor, I had to consider relevant precedents and to explain why different facts justify different outcomes. That is what I did in my report. I'm confident the analysis set forth in chapters 11, 12, and 13 of my report provides a thorough evaluation and explanation of the evidence, and I encourage everyone to read it to inform their opinions of the report. Prosecutors rarely write public reports or testify about their investigations. That is the Justice Department's long-standing policy, and it protects important interests. My team and I prepared the report to the Attorney General with care, and the report stands as the primary source of information. My responses today will be limited to clarifying information for the committee. I will refrain from speculating or commenting on areas outside the scope of the investigation, nor will I discuss what investigative steps we did or did not take beyond what's in the report. In conclusion, I want to express my heartfelt thanks to the attorneys, agents, analysts, and professional staff who helped us do our work fairly, thoroughly, and independently. I am grateful and privileged to have served with them. I single out for particular thanks Deputy Special Counsel Mark Crickbaum, a former United States attorney himself, who brought great wisdom, skill, and judgment to our task. Thank you. I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hur. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from North Dakota for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How could that possibly happen? How could anyone be that irresponsible? And I thought, what data was in there?
The rest of this is just going to be a dog and pony show, tit for tat. Left says something, right says something, cancels it all out. I think Hur's testimony is compelling. I think it addresses the gorilla in the room is Joe Biden and was his faculties in question because of political means or because that is what Hur found. And I think it was done with tact. I think it was done with taste. I think it's important if you're not going to bring charges on somebody to explain why you didn't. He did. I think it was used for political means by the right, and then the left are going to dismiss it as him being bipartisan or partisan and on one side versus the other. But let's remember who put him in place. Let's remember which administration put him in place. Let's remember that he ultimately found that Joe Biden was not to be held accountable for this. But this sets precedent. And when you say a vice president or a senator has the authority to take classified documents, which sounds to be an exuberant amount more than Donald Trump, when most of the things that Donald Trump had were magazines and paper clippings and swag and umbrellas. And if you look at the inventory report, it's ridiculous. There's really hardly any classified documents, 17 in total. And then you look and hear about what Joe Biden had, which was a considerable amount more than that. If you're going to sit here and say that somehow Joe Biden's going to walk for this and Donald Trump isn't, they're going to get him on obstruction because of the cease and desist and the court order to return the documents that Donald Trump didn't comply with. And that's on Donald Trump. All Donald Trump had to do was return those documents, and this would be a non-issue, but he didn't. And he's going to have to probably pay for obstruction. Does that mean jail time? No. He'll get a fine. He'll probably get reprimanded by the court, and that's it. And that's the way that most of these things take place. And we should go ahead and look at it that way. Will the public ever find out if there were any docs contained inside the SCI folders at Mar-a-Lago, or were they just empty doc jackets? Well, I think there most assuredly was, because doc jackets are serialized, as we know, and they're assigned to the piece of intel that are within. And every folder has a containing document which says what the items are, how many sheets there are, et cetera, et cetera. It'll do a word count. It'll do, whatever. And those folders ultimately are assigned to whatever intelligence that is. So there was intelligence in them at some point. And it's not like you just see a bunch of SCI folders laying around. That's not the way it works. An attaché or somebody who's taking information from a SCIF physically, there is a proper procedure and policy on how you handle that from point A to point B, and there's a chain of custody that takes place. Joe Biden doesn't have a chain of custody for those documents. Donald Trump does. Donald Trump's chain of custody is that he requested those documents. That's how they knew what he had, because he requested those documents out of a compartmentalized environment. Joe Biden doesn't have a chain of custody on those documents, and that's something nobody's bringing up. The question isn't whether he had documents, isn't whether he should have or shouldn't have. The question is how did he obtain them? That's what, and by illegal means, because there is no legal means for him to have those documents, and that is what we should be focused on when it comes to Joe Biden. But alas, it won't be, because very rarely are things like that the focused, because that would be them doing their jobs. August, thank you for the donation. $10, $11. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing that. It always means a great deal. Folks, I'm going to jump out. I got a recorded show to do. I got some news articles to write. Good enough for government work. Are we sure none of that stuff was planted at Mar-a-Lago? Yes, we're positive. Because the things that he took were all on a inventory list of the FBI back in January, February, when the first warrant was served, and the lawyers never contested that. And that is almost a mirror image of what they had, and they seized later in May, June. So, no. And here's the thing is, it's not like Donald Trump doesn't do stupid things. And if we could just all embrace that not everything's a setup. The documents thing is the way it was handled by the FBI with the warrants. That is completely unacceptable to me. It was an overreaction. It was all a play for media. I think it was retribution for Comey and retribution for the way Donald Trump handled the intelligence organization. A lot of the intel organizations don't like him. He's probably as loved as much as Kennedy was, and Kennedy was hated, and U.S. government decided to take him out for it. So there's no love lost between the intelligence community and Donald Trump, and they certainly sent that message when they came in peace and told him to put locks on the doors and inventoried what he had. And then, 4.5, 5 months later, turn around and do a full-fledged warrant and serve with militaristic style decorum and vigor. It's pretty obvious. But do I think it was planted? No. I think they treated him as they felt Donald Trump treated him through his presidency. But like I said, it's not that Donald Trump doesn't say stupid stuff. It's not that Donald Trump doesn't. I mean, look at E. Jean Carroll, for God's sakes. Isn't it cost him $83 million because he couldn't shut up? Listen, there's pride, and then there's stupidity. And my dad always said, pride goeth before the fall. And Donald Trump has put himself in a position that he can't shut up. And now he had to put up $90 million in a bond for E. Jean Carroll because he just couldn't shut his mouth. We all know that E. Jean Carroll is guilty as shit. We know that E. Jean Carroll's lying out of her ass. We know that they probably had some sort of fling or relationship or possibly went into a dressing room and kissed. Okay, fine, you can say that. And most of us could put two and two together that maybe something like that took place because she certainly doesn't look like she does now when she was younger. To Donald Trump's own words, he mistook her for his wife. Is it possible he was a philanderer? Did he mess around with women? Yeah, to his own admission. Is it possible that he went to go buy her some sexy lingerie and they were having a little bit of a fling or an affair and he took her in a dressing room and they got fingery and froggy? Sure. All those things could happen. And did she decide to go ahead and say, because that situation happened 30 years later, that it was rape, but can't remember the date, can't remember the time, can't remember where it was, why she didn't call out for anybody, how she left with her clothes torn and in shambles, how he was not charged with rape but got charged with sexual assault, but it says there was no inappropriate or forced touching, then how did he assault her? All of it's bullshit. Okay, fine. I'm fine with that. But Donald Trump should still have shut up. Because I'm not going to pay $83 million just to go ahead and get my name out there. And then he does it again. He did it again last night. And so I'm kind of like, dude, Don, just shut up about E. Jean Carroll. Let it go. She's going to keep taking you to court. And you may have it overturned, but eventually this stuff will catch up to you. He needs to get away from the court stuff. He needs to be focused on being in the country and touring alongside visit by visit or slightly behind Joe Biden and coming in behind him and just destroying him like he did Hillary Clinton. He's got to win these swing states back. This race is not going to be a blowout either way. It's going to be very tight and very contentious. This is going to be a long 9-month race. We've got to see him putting that effort in that isn't focused on court hearings. So do I feel that Donald Trump had evidence planted in Mar-a-Lago? No, I don't. Do I feel that Donald Trump is culpable for some of his actions in this? Yes, I do. And I feel Joe Biden is too, but I'm an intelligence professional. I believe that I think Hillary Clinton should be in prison. I think Joe Biden should be in prison. And if those two should be in prison, then Donald Trump needs to be considered too, because he obstructed justice when it came to intelligence documents. He didn't give them back. And nobody can say anything about that. You guys can argue everything else, but you're not going to argue the point that he obstructed justice. He did. He was told to bring him back. He didn't bring him back. He needs to be held accountable for that. Is that jail time? No, that's a fine. Should Joe Biden be in jail? I think he should have his clearance revoked. I think he shouldn't be able to run for president again, because not only did he not return the documents and he didn't have a chain of custody for those documents, he lied about returning them on several occasions and didn't know anything about them. To me, that is a much more severe course of action than what Donald Trump did. But Hillary Clinton's the worst out of all of them, and she hasn't even done anything but a 16-hour Senate oversight hearing that had more to do with Benghazi, and she hasn't faced her day in court. She never will, because she got plead immunity. So if you're thinking that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are going to be held accountable to this level, you better get in line, because there's a lot of other presidents who should be held culpable for things. SNL scandal, I've said this. Iran-Contra, running fast and furious, gun running between Obama and his AG. Look at the FISA warrants. Look at the P tapes. Look at the intelligence community spying on Donald Trump's campaign. Look what's going on with Julian Assange. Look at the NSA spying that was found under Barack Obama and the NSA spying when it came to Edward Snowden. None of those things, nobody's been held accountable. Nobody ever will be held accountable. This is all a dog and pony show. Said it 100 times. It's the way it works. I think you and your opinion are wrong. You're the professional, right? Well, Loretta, I am a professional. I've got, I guarantee, more time working in intelligence than you do. What was your clearance? What clearance did you hold? Have you ever been in the White House? Have you briefed the White House? Have you briefed the Pentagon? I have. I think that gives me a little bit of expertise in the subject. Have you handled TS and SCI? Have you been on any compartmentalized teams? I have. Have you had code word access? I have. Have you been in the Pentagon? Have you worked at Langley? Have you worked for the ONI, the NRO? Any of those? I have. I think my expertise is far superior to yours. So yeah, I am the expert. And you're not. And if you were, you would know. And every intelligence professional that has ever been on this show or ever commented in this section agrees with everything I'm saying wholeheartedly, because we would be held to a different standard. Well, you're not the President of the United States. Actually, the President of the United States has more restrictions on their ability to handle classified information than I did. I don't understand why people are so upset that any mention that Donald Trump did anything wrong in this situation is somehow impossible. that everything he does is perfect. It's a ridiculous notion. And the reason why is because people like you believe he's anointed by God. And that is the only way. If you think that Donald Trump has never done anything wrong, then you believe that he is perfect. And the only person who is perfect is God. So you believe that he's God. Is that correct? I've defended Donald Trump. I just said it's not even close to what Hillary Clinton did. I also said it's different than what Joe Biden did. But Donald Trump most assuredly obstructed justice when he didn't return those documents. Are you telling me that the President of the United States or anywhere else, that those public documents, which belong to you and me, that those documents are owned by the President of the United States, and I can show you fact, line, dot, and index of the law that says that that is inexplicably false? So if you believe in the law, which I'm assuming you say you do, and if the law is paramount, then Donald Trump didn't follow the law, so therefore he broke it. Explain to me how he did it. You can't, because you're a troll. You come by, you listen for 10 seconds, and you think that you know everything because your emotions tell you that you're right and I'm wrong. And I'm sorry, but your emotions really don't matter in this conversation. Facts are on my side. If you are told by court order to return documents that belong to the United States government, those documents are to be returned. And if you stall for over a year and you have 12 different requests that you have denied and refused and say you didn't have those documents, and then in January, February, when the first FBI warrant was served and they found you did have those documents and told you to put them under lock and key and didn't seize them at the time, then came back 4 months later and did a full-blown raid, which I don't agree with full armament, seizing his passports, not having his lawyers present, making sure he wasn't there, all of those things, which I've said are wrong, but still the government has a right to do. And they go ahead and seize those documents that they had requested from you and find them, and then some are missing. Yeah, you're going to be held accountable. But what do I know? I'm just a professional, right? But see, that's the thing, is that she's already gone, right? She's moved on because there's people out there who refuse to listen to anything that goes against their narrative. And this is why we are stuck where we're at, is your job in your head is to dismiss me because I'm making you feel insecure about what you're thinking. Instead of embracing that and listening to it and going, oh, okay, I can listen to some objectivity here. I can listen to a little bit of negative, but also hear the positive. But I can agree that maybe Donald Trump doesn't do everything right. Anyone that sits here and says that you just got hit for millions of dollars in defaming E. Jean Carroll, and they don't care about the rape, they don't care about the sexual assault, they just say you defamed her, even though none of it was true, and you have a jury in Manhattan, and you have a judge who wants to literally hang you from a yardarm, you know you're not going to get a fair shake. You know that the justice system's broken for you. So what do? You go out there and you call her a crazy, loony bitch, and guess what happens? You got to pay her $90 million. And when you do it again, you're going to pay her $150 million. And because you can't fight City Hall. You're not the president of the United States anymore. I don't understand why people would have a problem with anyone saying that Donald Trump makes poor decisions sometimes when it comes to his personal life. He may have made great decisions for the country, but when it comes to his personal life, he makes poor decisions. And the answer from the people like that lady is simple. Her answer is trust the plan. Donald Trump knows what he's doing. Really? Okie dokie. If that's what you think, it's an interesting one. Don't know if I agree with it. So thank you, Miss Loretta Lane, who stopped on by and fled as quickly as she came. We'll be back on at 7 o'clock tonight. Livia will be on. I will be on. We will probably cover a little bit of this, and we will have hopefully a recorded show here in a little bit. Also some news coming on for the day. Thanks for staying with me. Good to talk to you. Keep watching. That's on Fox News most of the day, I'm sure, and they will continue to browbeat. Why do trolls always come at the end? I don't know. I guess it's better than coming in the beginning. That's the end of the show, folks. See you guys at 7 o'clock tonight. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, Olivia, and Mike. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on the Spreely.tv network and all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just
But
don't
I
unfriend
can't tell
me.
you why. It just hurts my feeling.